So the topic for the day is like kind of SVG elements. So what is meant by SVG element? So generally, right, we call the small icons as the SVG element. So how we are going to handle the icon? So let me pick any of the web page. For example, let me pick this paragonsports.com. Okay, so in this web page, like we are having some small icon. If you notice at the top, we are having few icons like this location symbol, this profile symbol, and then like you are having some card symbol. So how we are going to handle it up? So in many instance, like what we used to do, we simply we right click and we will be inspecting that, and we will be capturing any of the element in the corresponding node and then pose that like we used to do the automation. But if you notice for an icon, especially for an icons, it will be start with the tag called as an SVG. Okay, so if it start with a tag called as an SVG, then okay, you can't able to handle in a tradition way. For example, in this case, right, we are having something called as a class name. Okay, I'm trying to use the class name in my coding. So how we will be traditionally writing the H path? So like double slash of tag name, okay, followed by, okay, I'm using the attribute called as a class, and then I will be providing the attribute value. Okay, now if you notice, it is providing 0 of 0 result. So we know the syntax is correct, but it is throwing 0 of 0 result because whenever, like if it is of an SVG, like we need to use in a different way, because whenever we use the SVG, right, we can't directly locate the elements. Even if you try to use the absolute H path, it won't work. Okay, and how we will get to know whether it is an SVG element or not, in the sense only with the help of the tag. If you right click and inspect, it will be starting with the tag called as an SVG. So, and even if I right click and inspect this card symbol, if you notice, so it is starting with the tag called as an SVG. Okay, but whereas if I right click and inspect this location, right, okay, so it won't start with the tag called as an SVG. So it is starting with the tag called as an A tag, which means in this case, like we can use any of the locator elements. But whereas in case of an SVG, we can't able to handle directly. Even like if we try to access from parent to child, let's say, so this is acting as the parent, right? So I'm creating the parent node. Okay, so I'm just fixing the parent node, and then I'm trying to use it in my coding. Now if you notice, it is giving like kind of two matching result. Okay, let it be. Okay, so let's traverse from the parent to child. So how we will be traversing from the parent to child? With the help of the child keyword. If I say child colon colon, and what is the tag name of the child? So SVG. So if I type SVG, okay, it is giving me the 0 of 0 result. Then how we are going to handle this SVG elements? Okay, it is pretty simple. So the Selenium offers like kind of one method called as an name method. Okay, with the help of the name method, we are going to handle the SVG element. So when we type the syntax double slash of, so we should use the asterisk symbol. So whenever we use the asterisk symbol, it indicates like we are considering all the nodes, and we should add the open and close square bracket, and in which like we are going to use the name method, and we should write the syntax called as an SVG. Okay, so now if I copy the syntax and if I paste in my DOM, so now you could able to see it is detecting, okay, all the SVG element. So it is picking all the SVG element. So how we have handled the SVG element in the sense? So only with the help of the name method. Okay, so whenever the SVG element comes into the picture, like we should use the syntax called it's an name of. Okay, now we can give the index or we can amend this particular syntax along with it. So if I right click and inspect, so what is the other locator which is present over here? So we are having something called as a class, right? Or else even this is the parent, right? Let's try to traverse from the parent to the child. Let me fix this parent node. So how we can try the parent node? So double slash of div at class is equal to in a single quotes. Okay, so we have written the parent node, and from the parent node, if you notice, we have amended the syntax called as an double slash of asterisk symbol followed by the square bracket name of is equal to svg. So now it is considered in the svg as it is present in the first matching result. You can directly use the syntax because find element always find the first matching element. And if in case if it is in second matching index, then what we can do, we can provide the index. How we can provide the index? At the end you can try to provide the indexes too, but if you provide in this way, right, it is not detecting. So the reason is like whenever you need to provide the index, we need to provide the index for the entire syntax. So how we can apply in the sense, you can mention the entire syntax inside the open and close bracket, and then at the end like you can provide the index. If I say 1, it is going to highlight the first result, and if I say 2, it is going to highlight the second result. Okay, so by this way we can make the syntax unique, and we can use the syntax in our traditional XPath. Okay, and inside the traditional XPath syntax, like whenever we are writing, right, driver dot find element by dot XPath, so we can use in the traditional XPath, and then we can do the click operation. For example, okay, so let me just create any one of the page object. So it is a paragon page. I'm just creating the page object in which like I'm just going to create a method. Okay, so public void. So what we are going to click, we are going to click on this profile icon, right? So I can write the code, click profile icon. Okay, so now this is done. Now what is the next step? So we are going to do the automation only with the help of the WebDriver. So we need to get the knowledge of the WebDriver from the page object manager class. So that is the reason I'm just creating the constructor. So I'm adding the constructor public. So the constructor name should be same that of the class name. Okay, so from the constructor we are going to get the knowledge of the WebDriver. So that is the reason I'm parameterizing the constructor, and whatever the local knowledge we are getting through the constructor, we should share the knowledge across all the methods present inside the same class. How we can achieve this? By creating the global variable. So I'm just creating the global variable. Now I need to assign the local knowledge to the global knowledge. How I can assign in the sense, with the help of the this keyword. Okay, so I'm just assigning the knowledge of the local instance to the global instance. Okay, so now this is done. Now let us try to use it in our coding, like kind of driver dot find element by dot. I'm using the XPath syntax, and inside the XPath syntax I'm going to provide the syntax whichever you have provided. Either you can provide this entire syntax, or else like even without syntax we can provide, because it is present inside the one of first matching result. Okay, even though there is two multi matching, so the find element always pick the first matching result. So we can say it is of an unique, and we can provide in our coding. Okay, and then in the particular line we can do the click operation. Okay, so whenever if it is of an SVG element, so we should handle only with the help of the name of is equal to SVG syntax. Okay, apart from that, like if you try to use the traditional intents, it will says no such element exception. So always make sure if it is of an icon, just verify whether it is starting with the SVG tag. If it is starting with the SVG tag, the best way of handling is like identify the parent. Okay, so if the parent is unique, fix the parent node and then traverse to the SVG with the help of the syntax called as an double slash of hash open and close square bracket name of is equal to in a single quotes we need to provide the SVG. Okay, now let me just try to run this particular scenario. Like I have already updated the tag called as an paragon01 in the runner file, and let me right click and run this file. Now it has invoked the browser and it has navigated to the appropriate URL, and post that right, it has performed the click operation over the particular icon. Okay, now how we have performed this click operation in the sense only with the help of this particular syntax. So what is the syntax which we have used? So which is nothing but so the double slash of asterisk symbol followed by the open and close square bracket, in which like we should use a name of method is equal to SVG. Now let's see like what happened when the user doesn't use the syntax. Now let us try to write the syntax in an alternative way. Let me pick any of the element from this particular node. Okay, I'm just right clicking and inspecting. Like this is the particular node in which like let me try to pick the element called as a class. Now let me just write the syntax like double slash of the tag name is SVG. Okay, and then I'm using the attribute called as an at class is equal to in a single quotes I'm providing the attribute value. Now if you notice whenever someone use the SVG tag, it is not considering the particular node, and you could see it is throwing like 0 of 0 result. Now the expectation is like if I try to use the syntax in my coding, let me try to update the syntax in the reusable class file. Now instead of this SVG syntax, I'm replacing with the traditional syntax, and let me try to do the click operation. Now we know so like it won't perform the click operation, and let's see what is the exception it is throwing up. Now the execution begins, like it is going to invoke the browser, and post invoking the browser it will be navigating to the home page and it should perform the click operation. Now if you notice it is navigated to the home page, but it is not performing the click operation. And if you look over the exception, okay, it will says no such element exception. Okay, so why it is throwing no such element exception? Because it won't consider the traditional syntax. So whenever there is an SVG tag, so we need to handle only with the help of the syntax called as an like double slash of asterisk symbol followed by the open and close square bracket, in which like we should use name of is equal to SVG. Okay, I will repeat once again, like we should always fix the parent node. So whenever the small icon is present, okay, now if you notice I'm trying to inspect another icon, this add to cart, even it is starting with a tag called as an SVG. Now if I need to handle this, I need to fix any of the node and pose it like I need to traverse to this particular node with the help of the relative syntax. Okay, so we should always use relative plus relative x path. Okay, in the first relative x path, like you need to provide the syntax which you are going to fix. So whenever you are going to fix something, it should be unique, and from the particular point you are going to traverse to the SVG. And how you are going to traverse in the sense by augmenting the other relative x path. So by the way, like we will be handling the SVG elements, which is nothing but we can easily handle the small icons which is present in the applications.